G'day listeners, you're listening to the weekly Dartscast podcast with your co-host Alex Moss and Burton DeWitt. Here in Australia, we like to call something bonzo if it's awesome or it's great. So when you listen to the weekly Dartscast, you're listening to a bonzo show. They have amazing guests, awesome interviews, and they'll give you all the ins and outs of the darts that you'll need this week. So sit back, relax, and it's time to get into it. Oh, check that out. 180. You beauty, mate.
Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Weekly Dartscast, sponsored by Dartwolf. I'm Alex Moss, and joining me, my co-host, he is the Darts Driver King, Darts statistician, Burton DeWitt. How are you doing?
I'm doing just fine and dandy. I didn't go for a run today, so putting my crown off to the side because we got some darts to talk about. How are you, Alex?
I'm doing good too, thank you very much. And it's been another busy weekend of darts for us to catch up on. You're also going to hear from two guests on the show, the former world champion Mark Webster, the busiest commentator in darts. We'll be catching up with him a bit later on. We're also going to hear from Jason Francis, the co-promoter of the World Seniors Darts Tour. We've just had their last televised event, their first year putting these events on. So we're going to get to a lot of your listener questions with him as well. So that's to come later. But let's start with a look back at events at the weekend. And as you messaged me at the weekend, it's now becoming the Luke Humphries Tour. Luke Humphries winning a fourth European Tour title of the year. Still 4 Players' Championships to come over this weekend into next week. But given his run on the stage at the moment, is Cool Hand the favourite for the World Match Play?
He's there or thereabouts. I think Michael Smith should be the favourite despite Luke Humphries' current run, because he's been able to do it on television as well, winning in the World Series, winning the last Premier League night. Granted, that didn't get him into the playoffs, but he's been able to play at a similar level to Luke Humphries and get similar results to Luke Humphries, but he's also done it on the televised stage. And we know he hasn't crossed the finish line before, but he's made the World Championship final just at the beginning of the year. He made the UK Open final at the beginning of the year. He's made other major finals before. So I think his overall CV and recent form makes him, in my book, the favorite, at least maybe not, if not the betting favorite, at least on current form. But Luke Humphries has to be there. He's now won the last 3 Euro Tour events that he's played in. He skipped one that gave Michael Smith the title. Granted, Michael Smith skipped this one. Who knows what would have happened had Michael Smith played in Trier. Maybe we would have had that final between the two that might have determined who should be the favorite heading into the World Match Play. But Michael Smith, I think, has done that little bit more and is playing that little bit better. That said, Luke Humphries was really impressive this past weekend. Okay, he wasn't averaging 108 like he did in the semifinals at his most previous Euro Tour title. Didn't average over 100 in the last 3 matches. He did in one of them, but not in the last 3 consecutive like he did in the previous event. But he averaged over 95 in every single match this time. He whitewashed Stephen Bunting. Granted, Bunting didn't really show up, or didn't show up at all to that match. After it was a pretty good week up until then for Bunting. But he whitewashed him. He hit everything when he needed to. He came back from 4-0 down in the final, winning 4 in the spin to even it up, and then getting over the line, winning a couple more legs at the end, including the last one against the throw to beat Rowby John Rodriguez. He beat Cameron Menzies' first match in what was the only other tight affair where Menzies averaged north of a ton. It doesn't matter what his opponent throws at him. Luke Humphries believes he's going to win. And in the final, or maybe it was the semifinal, I can't remember which, but the commentators were talking about the difference in how he looked in this event compared to earlier in the season when he was winning that first, that second, even that third Euro Tour event, where he was celebrating after every match, running around the stage, because, as they said, it was something new to him. That now he's a proven winner, and he believes that he is the man to beat every single event. And it was just business as usual. He didn't need to flash. He didn't need to celebrate, because the only thing that mattered was getting over the line in the final. Everything along the way to that was business as normal. And if he brings that mentality, if he brings that confidence, if he brings that overall game that he has now pretty much almost every weekend on the Euro Tour this year and often in the Players' Championships as well, then yeah, he will be one of the players to beat. I'm still putting Michael Smith as the favorite, but Luke Humphries is not far behind. And his first major title, if it's not Blackpool, isn't far behind that either. He is a superstar, not in the making. He is a superstar now. And that's why he's won 4 Euro Tours. And that's why he's one of the best players in the world.
Yeah, and that's a great phrase that you used there, business as usual from the weekend. And yeah, it probably did feel like that a little bit, given his way to the title and his performances over the weekend in Germany. It was a consistent standard throughout, as you say. It was high 90s to low hundreds, consistent all the way through the weekend. And yeah, there were some games that were tougher than others, but you look at that run that he had on the Sunday, and first 3 games on the Sunday, dropped just 3 legs against Lucas Feinig, Ian White and Stephen Bunting, whitewashing Stephen Bunting 7-0. But then we saw the other side of things, that the final against Roby John Rodriguez and the comeback that we saw in that game as well, 4-0 down. And in the first 4 legs, I think he had 1 dart at the ball. That was it. But to come from 4-0 down and the run of legs that he put together to get it back to 4, I think got down here 14, 15, 14, 11 darts. When you're up against it in a stage final, that does take some doing. And that's probably a testament to the year that Luke Humphries is having, the titles that he's already picked up this year, that he was able to produce a comeback like that and then get over the line, survive that match start in that last leg, both players getting a chance to win it, Luke getting another chance and getting over the line to win it. But he said himself that final on Sunday, what a game it was. He said that was the greatest win that he's had, and he's now got 5 titles this year, 4 on the Euro Tour, and there's only one player that's won more titles than him this year in the PDC, and that's Michael van Gerwen, who's on 6. And it's not often now that we can look ahead to these major tournaments and speak about the title sponsor, the market they've got, because we've not got many bookmakers left sponsoring these events. But Betfred are still the title sponsor of the World Match Play. They've got Michael van Gerwen 5-1, Gerwen priced 11-2, the defending champion Peter Wright 7-1, Johnny Clayton, and also the man you mentioned, Michael Smith, 8-1. Then you've got Luke Humphries and Dimitri van der Berg both at 10-1. So joint 6 favourites. For me, I would be putting Luke Humphries ahead of a few of those players that I mentioned before him, because the form that he's shown this year, the title winning form that he's shown, and the amount of confidence I think he's going to take, even if he has a bad weekend this weekend in the Players' Championship events, the confidence that he's got playing on stage this year, I think is going to serve him really well. And I think if you look at all the players that are going to be going to the World Match Play that maybe haven't won a TV title at a senior level like Luke Humphries yet, I don't think there's going to be anyone in that field with more confidence. I think you'd probably say you've got the more established winners, the likes of Dimitri van der Berg, who we've just seen win those back-to-back World Series titles. Michael Smith, we've seen him win on the World Series as well this year and make all those finals as well on TV. I think they're going to be going into it with plenty of confidence. And of course, Michael van Gerwen just won the Premier League. He's not come back into some good form since then. He had that little break, but he has won that Premier League, so he'll be bang up for it as well. But I think Luke Humphries, I think you'd probably put him around a third or a fourth favourite at the moment. So 10-1 looks like very good value. And considering what he's done this year on stage in front of those big crowds, I think 10-1 is a very good price for him.
Well, we can't talk about the final without talking about the beaten runner-up, a first Euro Tour final for Roby John Rodriguez, who missed 1 dart at tops in the decider for it. But will we look back on this weekend as one where Roby John Rodriguez showed his potential?
Yeah, I think we probably will, actually. And maybe you could point towards the World Cup last year, because that was when him and Mensur Suljovic, they had that run to the final together with Austria. And we saw some of the performances that Roby John put in that weekend. The game against England sticks out in the memory, beating, James Wade and Dave Chisnall, those two beating them in straight singles games. That was a very impressive win from those two. And maybe even the World Championship last year, he had that 97 average in the first round. And we think back to that time as well, Roby John Rodriguez wasn't a tour card holder. He didn't win his tour card back at Q School at the start of that year, but he did have a superb 2021. And I think he did an interview recently with the PDC, and he said that last year was one of his best ever years that he's had in darts, because of the amount of confidence and belief that he got back into his game, the results that he was picking up. Okay, he said it himself, he didn't have any pressure on him last year because he didn't have that tour card. So he was going into all these Players' Championship events doing well, not having to worry about the rankings so much. But when it got to the World Championship and a tour card was essentially on the line. If he'd have got, I think it was maybe one or two more wins, he would have got that tour card. He would have been in the top 64 and he wouldn't have had to go to Q School. But he didn't get enough wins in that, and fair play to him because he dusted himself down. He went to Q School a few months later, and we had Mick Lang, his manager, on after Q School, and actually he reached out to us. He said, do you want me to come on and talk you through that dramatic final day of the European Q School when Roby John went out early, and it was a long wait to find out if he was going to keep that last spot on the Order of Merit. We saw players mismatch darts, players come very close to knocking him out of those spots. And it was a great story from Mick. Go and have a listen to it if you haven't already. And to get the tour card in those circumstances, and then as we've seen in the last few months, he really has kicked on, and we've seen him make a couple of quarterfinals on the Euro Tour, and also that the World Cup as well, having a few wins there as well. But I think getting to the final of a Euro Tour is a huge accomplishment for him, and the way he's done it as well, he's come through some close games in there. That the game against Madas Razma, coming through that in a last leg decider, and even in the first round beating Danny Noppert, the UK Open champion, 6-5. So he's come through some last leg deciders. The final in the end, that was just one last leg decider too much for him on this occasion, but we've seen from the weekend that he is someone that just relishes playing on the stage, and he is playing with so much confidence and belief in his game. And you've just got to look at the 180s that he's been throwing as well. And I was calling it the showman shot, and think back to the days of Peter Wright when he was breaking through end of 2013, and at Ali Pali he was revving up the crowd before going for a double to get them to make more noise. Roby John doing it with the 180s, and fair play to him, actually. He's getting that last start in the treble 20 more often than not. I'm not sure what the stat is from the weekend, but he was getting it a few times, so full credit to him. And yeah, he'll be gutted that he didn't win the title in the end. He had that dart at tops, and I think he had, 6 darts from 115 in the end in that decider, and to get one dart, he'd have probably fancied to get more darts, match darts, title darts than that. But it's put him in a good position. Of course, if he'd have won the title, he would have been in the World Match Play. It would have opened a lot more doors. But getting to the final, I think he can push on from this, and he's going to get another chance this weekend, another 4 chances to have a good run. And he's only £500 off the World Match Play, and that's not even a first round win, is it? I think you get £750 now. So he's well in the mix for the match play. And yeah, if he can take the confidence that he's had from this weekend and what he's done over the last, you'd probably say 18 months, then I think we're going to be seeing a lot more of Roby John Rodriguez, not just on the Euro Tour stage, but on the TV stages this year as well.
Well, you touched on something that I wanted to mention as well, the fact that he nearly was able to get in the top 64 last year without a tour card. And had he done that, his overall order merit wouldn't have reset to 0, obviously, but neither would have his Pro Tour order merit. And if you look at what he did from last year after the World Match Play through to the end of the year, there wasn't as many events. There were only a couple Euro Tour events. He didn't qualify for either of those. And there was only a handful of Players' Championship events, but he did, because of how dominant he was on the Challenge Tour, get into those. He won £4,500 in those Players' Championship events at the back end of last year. If you add that to his Pro Tour Order of Merit, he would be in one of the spots right now. He'd be ahead of both Ricky Evans and Ross Smith, who are tied for the last spot. Ross Smith ahead on countback. He would be ahead of Adrian Lewis. He'd be ahead of Andrew Gilding. He'd be not safe in the World Match Play, but in a very good position entering these 4. He'd be £3,250 ahead of Adrian Lewis, as opposed to the 500 he's behind. But fortunately for him, he didn't. But he didn't let that stop him. And this past weekend, we've just seen more of what we've seen, I was going to say all year, but I'll even say all of last year, because he's been a top 32 caliber player last year. That's why he almost got into the top 64 on just 1 year without even having a tour card. And he's obviously been able to kick on this year. That's why he's in the race. If you look at his performances in the Players' Championships this year, okay, he hasn't gotten any really big results, but he's playing at a very good standard, excluding players who've only played in a couple of the Players' Championship events this year. He's 30th in averages, averaging just a shade under 94. That's more than a point over his World Cup, or almost a point over his World Cup teammate Mensur Suljovic. It's almost 2 points over his brother Rusty Jake Rodriguez, who hasn't kicked on quite as well as Roby has so far this year. And after a slow start to the season, where he after the very first Players' Championship event, where over the next 6, he only won 2 matches and was averaging in the 80s as often as he was averaging in the 90s. He's really upped his game. And that's why now, as I said, he's 30th in the averages. That's why he's put himself in competition for the World Match Play. It's why he was able to get to the final of this Euro Tour event without being given a very easy draw. He started against the UK Open champion. Then he went against the former world number 1 and current world number 2. Then he went against the German number 1. He went against another former UK Open champion in Nathan Aspinall. And then he beat Matters Rasmussen, who's had a breakthrough year and a half. And that's how he got to the final. And he had a dart to beat the guy who's been dominating the European Tour this year. That is just a brilliant run for Roby John Rodriguez in a draw that he opened up for himself by winning all those matches. Well, I can't really say if you go against the best player on current form on the Euro Tour, the draw opened up. But he opened up the draw by beating the top seed and beating everyone who he came across. It was really, really impressive. And, if he can get into the World Match Play, that will be the next stepping stone for him. Because 6 years ago, he entered the final weekend clinging to the final spot in the World Match Play field, but he got dropped out after having a bad final weekend and just missed out. That was 6 years ago, and he's been nowhere near that ever since. Obviously fell off the tour a couple of years ago, but was in danger of falling off the tour a few times previous to that. He's now back in that position 6 years later, and his game is so much more complete. His demeanor is so much better. He is a consummate professional now, and I think he will get the job done. We'll talk about that in a later question. But this was a big weekend because it's given him that opportunity, and it's one that I think he's now ready to seize. So to answer the question, did he show his potential? Yes. I think that potential is a top 32 player because, well, all the stats point that way, and he just needs one big week to get into the event that, in essence, is the top 32 players, the World Match Play.
And we'll be looking ahead to potentially that big week this weekend in Barnsley. But first, let's get to our first guest on this week's show. He is the former world champion and the current commentator, Mark Webster. I'm pleased to say I'm joined by the former champion of the world and one of the busiest commentators in sport, Mark Webster. Thanks for the time, Mark. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. Busy again, just on the lively again at the minute, so enjoying it. But yeah, no, I'm all right, thanks.
Good to hear. Well, there's lots to catch up on since we last had you on, but let's first touch on the weekend just gone. You were out in Germany commentating on the Euro Tour, a 4th Euro Tour title of the year for Luke Humphries, and what an incredible final with Roby John Rodriguez. Do you think Luke Humphries, though, is now ready to go on and win that first major title?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, it's natural progression for Luke Humphries now, isn't it? He's gone from winning development tours to challenge tours to pro tours to Euro tours. So the next step is naturally to win a major title. And I think he's ready. I'm not sure when it'll happen, and I hope he doesn't pressure himself to want to have to do it. I mean, to have to do it in the next one or the one after. He's got plenty of time, but yeah, he's in a great space at the minute, and he's found that winning formula. And I wouldn't be gobsmacked if it did come this year.
You and Dan Dawson were on the mic for that final, and we could hear the excitement you both shared as you were calling that final. Where did that game rank for you in terms of all the games you've commentated on? Can you think of a better one?
Yeah, you know what? I've probably commentated on some better ones, but I say better ones. It was dramatic, wasn't it? But it was just, I think, just the game itself, because it was Roby John sort of coming of age. He has been for a while. Again, it's just a serial winning. It was a brilliant game. It had loads of little stories, and it was fantastic. I felt for Roby. I felt he did enough just to edge out Luke, but Humphries is a winner now, and if he can come from 4-0 down, he could beat anyone. So I enjoyed the final.
Well, let's stick with the Euro Tour for a moment, because I think that was the 9th Euro Tour already this year. So it's good to see the tour getting back to how it was a few years ago. We have to ask about what I assume is your favourite drink, mezzo. Can you describe what it tastes like for us and our listeners that haven't tried it?
Oh, yeah. Oh, it's a random little addiction. It's just like a mixture of Fanta and Coke, really. So, I don't know, it's just something different. I probably need to calm down a bit, but I get the odd bottle. My niece likes it as well, so I bring a couple of bottles back for her when I go away. So, it's all right. It's a nice little treat when I'm away. Just something different. And no one else likes it as well, so it's handy. So I kind of get the stock to myself. Definitely
sounds different. Well, we've only just crossed the halfway point of the year, but already there's been so much darts in 2022. There's been talk about players managing their schedule, but what's it been like for you as a commentator, juggling your work with Sky, ITV, PDC, the seniors, the Live League this week? It's certainly kept you busy.
Yeah, it does, but I have little breaks here and there. I've got I'm pretty. Once the match plays done, I've got a decent break, and it coincides with my children being off school, so that'll help a little bit. So, but no, yeah, it's good. I enjoy it. I mean, the live league. I really like working on the Euro Tour. You know, I really enjoy the Sky work. I mean, the people I work with as well. We have a good laugh. It doesn't even feel like a job, which I'm very lucky. So, yeah, it's good. I enjoy it. And the old saying is, if you've got a job you enjoy, it's not a job. And I'm probably blessed in that sense.
We're just touching on the schedules, and especially for the players at the top of the PDC, it's been talked about, should players be looking at their schedule, maybe picking and choosing events a bit more. And we saw a few of the big names pull out of the last Euro Tour. If you were in their shoes, how would you be approaching it this year?
Do you know what? I'm sitting here now thinking, if I'm playing well, I want to carry on playing and keep winning. But then I get the flip side of there's a big tournament around the corner. If you tick the box for the European Championships, do you need to be having Trier? If you qualify for stuff, if is it a chance to have a break if you go on the World Series? There's so many little plots, isn't there? And for example, Luke Humphries is going to be a father later on in the year, so he'll probably need a break then. So he's just carried on playing. So it's just so many different approaches and different reasons why players have breaks. And I'll never judge. I think players like, I don't understand the circumstances, but I've seen Jim Williams this year missing on a few events. He should have played. I mean, obviously he's probably got his own business, got a family, but he's committed to the PDC, and I really like Jim, and he's making good strides. I think he should have gone to some of these he's missed, but his decision. But it's a completely different circumstance for every player, isn't it? And I'll never judge. And if it helps you, if it's going to help you, if you think it's going to help you later on in the year, then why not have a break?
Well, this year we saw the return of the Premier League back to its regular Thursday slot, the 4-month roadshow across Europe, but this time with a new format. And I think you put on Twitter that the Premier League needed a shake-up. So looking back on it now, how did you think the new format went?
Yeah, it went well. I mean, I think if you've got a ticket in the audience, you much prefer you've got a proper tournament, you're going out and watching an event. I suppose there's that element if you're watching at home, but it needed a change, and I think they got it bob on, and it was illustrated the change because every single player won an evening, and I thought it was a great event. I was pleased with Joe, obviously, a bit gutted he didn't win it, but I thought the change that was needed, and the PDC rarely get stuff wrong, and they got it bob on this time.
Barry Hearney said on our show recently the new format is here to stay for next year, but could you see it maybe being tweaked in any way, perhaps? Maybe include more players, or do you see it staying as the 8 players?
You know what, if you can get other players in, it's great, isn't it? We all like to see a few more players, but it's just not as easy as that, is it? It's and it was always going to stay for a bit, wasn't it? You don't do something for 1 year and just leave it, and it's been successful, but it's the pressure cooker of players trying to qualify now. It's so hard. It was hard at 10, but it's 8 now, so you've really got to go some to qualify. But no, I liked it, and it's always going to stay for another year, and PDC don't stand still. If it needs a tweak again in a few years, they'll do it again, and so on and so on. You've got to move with the times, and I think by doing this, they have done.
Away from the PDC, we've seen the World Seniors debut this year. We've just had the 3rd event on TV. You commentated on the first 2, I think. 4 events already confirmed for TV next year. What did you make of the first year of this Seniors? Yeah,
it's been good. Particularly the perfect one for me. It was just a venue I'd never been to, so it was nice to go there. I thought that was fantastic. But just to see, some of the players returning, and then, stories like Richie House and Colin McGarry as well. I haven't seen him for ages. The last time he was on telly, I played him. So
we weren't going to bring that up.
Yeah. You didn't mention I got through the group, did you?
No.
But no, I've liked it. I've enjoyed it. And obviously you need an influx of new seniors. I mean, I personally love to see Wayne and Lloydie get involved when they're old enough, so we'll see what happens. But no, I like the concept. I think it's been okay, and I hope it continues.
Yeah, it'd be good to see both of them in, because we get a lot of tweets asking us why they're not playing in it, but just not old enough yet to play in it.
I know. I mean, you wouldn't believe looking at them, but no, they're not old enough. But no, they'd be great additions.
Well, we should touch on as well, you mentioned it, you're back commentating on the Live League this week. You've just finished the first session of the week. What's that like to commentate on? Because I guess it's a lot different to your other gigs, a lot more games, and you're going solo as the lone commentator as well.
Yeah, it's something different. I don't mind it really. It's completely different players. you've got to do a bit of research and stuff. But no, I like it. It's another test for me. Commentating on your own, it's just another box to tick. And it's a quick turnaround as well. The games come thick and fast. Quick games, obviously best of 7 as well. No, but it's different, but I like it.
Let's get on to your darts, and we've gone long enough without mentioning your 170 finish in an exhibition in Germany a few months ago, potentially an outsider for our Checkout of the Year award, but just talk to us about that. How many times have you watched it back now, and how special was that moment?
What do you mean outsider? You close the book now. It's one. Do you know what? It's one of them. I'm telling. I can't remember what I was telling. I was practicing in the back room. I was having a stinker, I was changing stems, changing flights. I'm like, what's going on here? I couldn't get used to anything. Because I was only playing a little exhibition match in the pairs. That's all I played. And it was just one of them. It just clicked into gear. You try things like that in exhibitions. They occasionally come off, and I was just lucky that there was a video camera on it when I did it. But no, it was good fun. And it was... I get on with Joe, Johnny, and Max as well. So it was great to share the stage there. And I've got to be said as well, Max did a pretty impressive 81 on his knees in the last leg, and Johnny did a bullseye finish in the first one. So it's just good fun. We had a good laugh, and I must say I've watched it a few times there.
Very nice. Well, in front of 3,000 people as well. And I know you said to us before, seeing Peter Wright win the World Championship again in his 50s, also sharing an apartment with Stuart Pike during the Worlds, that's inspired you to get playing again. But moments like the 170 must just give you even more of an urge to try and return to playing on the circuit.
Yes and no. It's at the minute I can't even throw for a couple of months now. Just a bit of rehab on my shoulder, so that element's gone for now. But I'm very much undecided. I change my mind every week. It's kind of I'm pretty certain I'll go in January. I don't know how prepared I'll be when I go there, because obviously I work all of December. So we'll see. But I'll give it a bash. But I do go through phases where I want to play and where I don't. I can't get a bug back completely yet, so we'll just see how it goes and see how I feel in a few months, really.
Well, this year we have seen you play a bit more of a local level as well, and I saw on Twitter you were back playing Super League for the first time in 13 years. What was that like playing Super League again?
It was good. As it happened, I played against a team that a lot of my friends were in, so I had a good catch-up. I actually played against one of my best mates as well, so it was good fun. It was strange. It was literally, I haven't played for a good 13, 14 years. I was helping out, and I did actually only play the one game. I played a little bit of inter-county darts as well, but I was quite well off the pace, to be fair. I didn't pull up any trees in my averages, but it was just nice to be involved, meet some friends and that, and we'll see. I might try and play a few more comps at the end of the year. I'm hoping to play in the online league as well, so see, like I said, I got no concrete plans. I'll just sort of wing it and make it up as I go along, really, and we'll see how we go.
And we should mention one of your practice partners and friends, Di Davies, recently winning the ADC Welsh title. Have you put out a challenge for his belt yet?
No, do you know what? I think it would have been a good thing to do if I was fit to play. I think we could have made something happen in Denby, but no, unfortunately, I think the plan is to have a rematch with Robert Owen. But no, I was well impressed. Fair play to him. He's a good player. He's a gritty player. It's probably one of the best performances he's had, really. 93 plus average over 9 legs. It's good going. And Robert Owen's playing some good stuff, and he did a right job on him. So I was pleased today. I know he's well chuffed, and fair play to him.
And away from the darts, we've also seen you're a fan of Love Island. Have you been able to keep up with events in the Villa, given all your commentary gigs?
I'm not the man. I don't say I'm muscle. I quite enjoy it. I got rinse to do when I pull onto it. I won't prepare to go again. But no, I like it really. But it's just it's one of them shows. Easy watching it, background, and it's controversial, but it's something to do with it.
Well, let's get back to the important stuff, and an important weekend coming up on the Pro Tour, the last events before the cut-off for the World Match Play. Who do you fancy from the players outside the spots to maybe go on a run, sneak in to get to Blackpool?
I think Scott Williams will make it. I mean, he's a bit off, but I still think he'll make it. He's playing too well to go and have a shocker in Barnsley. I'd like to see Roby make it now. I think it's new players, and Scott Williams again is a great story. I mean, how cocky is this guy? But he's such a good player and a good watch, natural accent. And I think he'll make it. I think he's too good not to pick up the prize money needed the weekend. Like I said, I'd like Roby to make it. I think it'd be a great story if Simon Whitlock made it as well. He's in striking distance. But from the pack, I don't see many more. I think the entry's quite complete So when you, obviously, the more random results are less likely with a more completed field. So I think Whitlock, Roby John, Scott Williams are possibles. I'd like to see Ricky Evans sneak in there as well. But it's a nervy weekend, and there's not a great deal of spots to bet on what it is, but it's going to take some big victories. I mean, obviously, I'd love to see Josh Rock come from the pack and make it as well, but I'm asking a lot. But it's going to be exciting and intense, and there'll be opportunities, and there will be someone in the spots come Sunday and they fall out, and it's just the way it is. But it's a bit of a brutal weekend, but such a rewarding weekend as well. £10,000 just being in a match play, so massive weekend.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it. And lastly, still a while off, but we have seen since we last spoke, Wales qualified for the Football World Cup in Qatar. First World Cup in a long time. Do you think Wales will do enough in their first two group games to get out of the group, seeing as they'll probably lose to England in their last game?
I think they'll get through the group. I wouldn't be gobsmacked if we took someone off England as well, because I don't think they're in a great space at the minute. But Wales are a good side and a passionate side, and that now they're quite ambitious. I think they'll get through that group. Obviously, England favourites, but it's a winnable group, but one that Wales I expect to get through. And I look forward to that. I can't wait. And it actually it's over Minehead as well. One of the games, the Wales-Iran game, so there'll be a good, and England are playing the same day. So there'll be a good atmosphere down the Players' Championship finals in November.
Good times. We're looking forward to that. Well, plenty more to come before then, Mark. It's always a pleasure to get you on and catch up. We appreciate the time and wish you all the best with everything you've got on for the rest of the year.
No, anytime. Thank you, Alex. Cheers.
Thanks again to Mark for joining us. Now on to the weekend, and it is a huge weekend in Barnsley. We've got 4 Players' Championships coming up before the cut-off for the World Match Play. Of the players who we're saying who have qualified, who most need to run?
Yeah, we were talking off air about this question, and I think we'll answer the question differently because I'll focus on the players on the Pro Tour or merit. You said you'll focus on the ones who are qualifying as the seeds, and that way we'll talk about different players. And okay, Gabriel Clemens, Matters Rasma, Brendan Dole, and Chris Dobie, and I know they haven't officially qualified yet, but being that they're each over £8,000 ahead of the first person currently out, it would be very, very surprising if they were caught. It could happen, but it would be surprising. So I'm going to include them in here. I'm not including Andrew Gilding, Adrian Lewis, or Ross Smith because they have not qualified yet. They're in the pole position to get to the field, but they haven't qualified yet. So I'm sticking to the players who, as of right now, are in the top 13 Pro Tour spots. And I think a few of them really are in need of a run. Ryan Searle has not been the same player as he was last year. And there's been flashes recently that he's getting back because at the end of last year, he was right there in that conversation for the next major champion. I mean, he was within a leg of winning the Players' Championship final in Minehead at the end of the year. And no one was really surprised at that because of the level he was playing at the back end of the season, but he hasn't been as consistent this year. And okay, he's 4th in averages in the Players' Championship events, but he's laid a couple duds, including this past weekend on the European Tour. And it leaves some legitimate question marks about where his game currently is. A big week here doesn't have to be a title, but just getting some results, getting through to the quarterfinals a couple times will give him that confidence that he's right there where he was last year as one of the forces in the game and one of the breakthrough players in the game. But he needs that because right now he hasn't been showing that, at least not often enough. And there's a couple other ones, especially the players who are a little bit further down that Pro Tour order of merit, because it's not just about the World Match Play. It's also about making sure you get to the World Grand Prix. It's making sure you get, at the very least, improve your seeding for the World Championships at the back end of the year. And as things currently stand, Brendan Dolan is not in the field for the World Grand Prix. Okay, it's not in Dublin anymore. It'll be in Leicester this year, but I'm sure he doesn't want to miss out just because he'll have to take a flight to it. And I mean, he was in the seeds in the Euro Tours last year and didn't get his just reward because there were so few of them. But he was playing at such a high level that hasn't been the case this year. Another player who has regressed quite significantly, and he's going to need to lift his game if he's going to be a force in the world match play. He's going to have to lift his game if he's going to be a force this weekend in Barnsley, because he is now threatening not to just drop out of that top 16 of the Pro Tour Order Merit, but drop out of the top 32 altogether very soon. Getting some results will help him make sure he gets to the World Grand Prix, but also give him confidence heading into the world match play, because it wasn't that long ago that he was playing at a level that you'd expect, okay, not to win the title, but if he's playing at his best, could go win a couple matches. Chris Dobie's another one of those players who I think needs a good run. Gabriel Clement obviously has not been the same player as he was a couple years ago. Again, some flashes at times, but has really taken a step back. That's why, in terms of Pro Tour Order Merit, he is well behind Martin Schindler for the German number one on the Pro Tour. He still is obviously the German number one in the overall Order Merit, but that will change sooner rather than later if he doesn't lift his game. So those are the players I think really need a run right now from the Pro Tour qualifier. So I'll turn it over to you to mention the ones that you think from the top 16.
Yeah, and there's definitely a few in that list. Obviously, the 16 could change. We've got Krzysztof Ratajski currently in that 16th spot, but it's around £7,000-8,000 between him and Ryan. So you've also got Nathan Aspinall in there. He could potentially move into those 16 seeded spots if he has a good weekend. So that's not done and dusted just yet. But I'm looking at players that are guaranteed to be in the seeds, and one of the players I was going to pick out straight away is the current going to be the number 6 seed at the moment. That's Gary Anderson, and feels strange to say Gary, considering the last time that we saw him, he was making a final on TV, the World Series in Denmark, but that's the last time we saw him, and that was around 3 or 4 weeks ago. We didn't see him play in the World Cup. We haven't seen him play those Players' Championship events in Germany, and of course we don't see him on the European Tour either. So it's been a little while since we've seen him. So I think he'll want to get some results this weekend, and especially as we're looking a bit further ahead. But he will be defending that runners-up money from the 2020 World Match Play. So that money, if he has a bad run at the World Match Play, a lot of that could be dropping off, and we could see him start to drop down those rankings. And as we've said before about Gary, and this was probably around the time when he won that Premier League night in Nottingham back in March time, we were saying, is this the start of another big run from Gary Anderson? And unfortunately for him, it didn't turn out to be like that. But he is defending that World Match Play runners-up money, and at the end of the year, the runners-up money in the World Championship. So he is in need of a good second half of the year now to stop that slide down the rankings, which could potentially happen. So it could all start with a good run this weekend, and we all know he's capable of putting in a run of performances in a Pro Tour event, getting to a final. We've seen him already do it once this year, so I think he's going to be looking for a run. The player just below him, 7th on the provisional seeds at the moment, Jose de Souza, and someone that we've spoken about a few times this year. We've spoke about him a lot over the last few years, but more so recently for the not so good reasons, because his form from a couple of years ago, last year, hasn't been the same, has it? We've seen a few flashes this year. We've seen him get to a semi-final on the Euro Tour, and of course the World Cup. We saw him beat Peter Wright in that singles game. We've also seen the other side of Jose de Souza when he bust the 181 with the 180. But I think for him, and we've just seen at the weekend, he averaged 80 in his first game on the Euro Tour. We've just not seen him be as consistently brilliant as we've seen him in the past. And there was a lot of the seeds that went out at the weekend in the first round. I think it was 10 out of the 16 seeds lost their first game. But I'm going to mention a player that didn't play at the weekend, pulled out, and that is the world number 1, Peter Wright. And actually, I'll mention the world number 2 as well, Gerwyn Price, because this is probably not going to get as much attention as those spots for the match play, but the race to be the number 1 seed for the Winter Gardens, that is still very much in the air. I think there's around 13-14 grand between them at the moment. So, and we know that a Pro Tour win on the Players' Championship events, that is 12 grand. So you've got 4 of them. It's still up for grabs. So Peter Wright's still got that world number 1 spot. It's kind of been a bit of a poison chalice for him, hasn't it? We've not seen him play anywhere near as well as he was playing before he became world number 1. But Gerwyn Price will want to get that spot back. But again, as a world number 2, he's just thrown in an 82 average at the weekend in his first game and lost to the eventual finalist Roby John Rodriguez. So both of those players, they are in desperate need, I think, out of the seeds to have a good run this weekend, and especially Peter Wright, because we think back to last year and how well he played in the World Match Play. It really started the event before. He had a few poor runs in the Players' Championships leading up to the World Match Play, but the last one before the World Match Play, he went all the way, won the title, beat Michael van Gerwen 8-2 with 108 average. We were calling him Last Day Peter Wright last year. He was winning all the last events in the Players' Championship series, and okay, he could have a few bad runs and win the last title. But I think if you were to offer him that now, he'd say, yes, please, thank you very much.
Now, there's still all to play for in the race for World Match Play, as I previously mentioned. I think the top 13, they're not safe, but they're probably there. But as I said, Andrew Gilding on 36,000 pounds, Adrian Lewis on 34,750 pounds, and Ross Smith on 34,000 currently hold the last three spots. Ross Smith ahead of Ricky Evans on countback, but a plethora of players within a semifinal of that last spot, and a bunch of others who would only need a final to get into it. Of the players who are currently outside of the qualification spots, anyone that you fancy sneaking in?
Yeah, there definitely is. And as I mentioned in the last question, 12 grand for winning one of these Players' Championship events. So if you look down the list of players that currently aren't in those Pro Tour spots, you've got, I think, goes down to Ian White in 36th spot, 22 grand. He wins a title, he goes to 34 grand. So potentially could put himself in those spots on the first day. And that is a player that I was going to mention, actually, Ian White, because he did play well at the weekend in the Euro Tour, and it was good to see him back on stage playing well and getting a few wins under his belt. And we look at players that have had a long run of qualifying for the World Match Play, at least an active run. We've got James Wade, Gary Anderson, Dave Chisnell. Ian White is next on that list. He's made it for the last 10 years along with Michael Van Gerwen, but he is going to need a good run. He's going to need an Ian White of old when he was winning these Pro Tour titles, not just on the floor, but the Euro Tour. But it was really the floor events we started to see him make his name and win those titles. And that is what got him to the number one seed for the Players' Championship finals a little while ago. So we know that he's more than capable of winning one of these titles, maybe even two in a weekend. So I'll put Ian White as one of my outsiders. And you heard from Mark Webster earlier. He mentioned a few names. I asked him this question as well. Who does he see maybe getting in these spots? And he gave me four names. He said Scott Williams, he thinks will definitely get in. He's currently outside. Roby John Rodriguez, he said he'd like to see him get in. Ricky Evans, he's the closest at the moment, just outside on countback from Ross Smith. Both of those on 34 grand. And the other one he mentioned as well was Simon Whitlock. And he's someone that we've, of course, just seen win that World Cup alongside Damon Heta, but we've not seen him play since then. We didn't see him on the Euro Tour at the weekend. So this will be the first time that we've seen him in a PDC competition. He's probably played in maybe 20, 30 local competitions since that World Cup, but this will be the first time we've seen him play in that PDC setting. And he's well in the mix, isn't he? I think he's less than 3 grand off those top 16 spots. So maybe he could be someone to keep an eye out for. But one name I'll give a mention to, and Mark Webster, he mentioned him as well. He's a little bit far off at the moment, but you look down the list, these are the Players' Championship averages for the year. And, okay, we're not going to mention Darryl Pilgrim because he is the stats killer. One game, 99.47 average. Put him out of the equation. The player with the highest average that currently isn't in the field is Josh Rock. And what a start he's had to the year. This is his first year, of course. He probably will be in the World Match Play next year if he carries on the form that he's showing at the moment. But he's had 3 quarterfinals and a semi-final in the Players' Championship events, and the last 3 Players' Championships he's had a quarter-final, a semi-final and a last 32, and less than 10 grand off those spots. If he could have a good couple of runs this weekend, I think he is an outside shot as well. So I'll give a mention to those. They're going to be my maybe outsiders, Ian White and Josh Rock, to maybe get in those spots.
Well, I'll start where you finished off, because what you said there at the end was what I was going to mention, and that's Josh Rock. Well, I mean, we know how well he's been playing. I've mentioned it a few times. He's my tip for being not necessarily the next first-time winner, because anyone who hasn't won a title could be that, but at least a player who I think will win his first title this year. Granted, he's running low on opportunities, but still has a little less than half the season to go. But you mentioned those last 3 events, a quarterfinal, a semifinal, and a last 32. How much do you get for a quarterfinal? That's 3,000 pounds. How much do you get for a semifinal? That's 4,000 pounds. How much do you get for a last 32? That's 1,250 pounds. Take that money, add it to what he has right now. That's the difference. Granted, you'd expect at least one of Ross Smith or Ricky Evans to win one match over the next 3 events. So just duplicating what he did in the last 3 would probably not be enough to get him into the field, provisionally entering the final event, but it certainly would give him a chance. And there's no reason to think he can't go further. That semifinal becomes a final. That's another 4,000 pounds. Can he make a final over one of the next 3 events? Yes. Can he make multiple? Okay, we'll see. But he's definitely playing at a really high standard. You mentioned that fact that he's, excluding Darrell Pilgrim, 14th in averages this year, just a fraction behind Callan Ritz, who won 2 titles last year. He is really, really playing well. And yes, he's left himself a lot to do, but he already did a lot last time. And all he has to do is duplicate that to give himself more than a fighting chance of getting in. And remember, I said that's 3 events. There's still another one on top of that. So throw another semifinal. Maybe that'll get it over the line. But he absolutely can get in, even though he has a lot of work to do. I agree with Scott Williams. He's just been incredible this year. We'll put aside his dominance on the Challenge Tour. He's also won a Players' Championship event. He's been a force to be reckoned with pretty much every tournament that he's gotten into, and he's now only less than 3,000 pounds out of the field. I really think that he'll get in. I'm not saying Josh Rock will get in, but I do think Scott Williams will. I think Josh Rock has a good chance. And then someone else, Roby John Rodriguez and Keen Barry are right there. Keen Barry's only 1,250 pounds back. We've mentioned Roby John a lot. I think Roby John will get it done this time around. I think he's ready. I think Keen Barry's ready as well, but I just think Keen Barry's going to be a little bit outplayed by Roby and a little bit outplayed by Scott Williams, and that'll keep him out. Because I don't see all 3 of Gilding, Lewis, and Ross Smith going out. That said, if we were talking 2 months ago and this were where it's at, I would say Ross Smith had no chance to hold his spot. But he has improved. Yes, he's still in the middle of the field so far this year in terms of averages in the Players' Championship events, but he's added a good 2 points to his average over the last couple months after what was a dreadful start to the year. At one point in 8 Players' Championship events, he only won a total of 1 match, 7 first-round exits and 1 second-round exit, and he was playing significantly worse. Right now, that little under 92 for the year in the Players' Championships, but he's closer to a 94 since April. And that's a big difference. And because a 94 average is there or thereabouts for what you need to be a top 32 player. Ross Smith has a lot to do, and there are players definitely playing better than him, chasing him. But I think he's given himself a chance. Adrian Lewis left himself a lot to do by skipping the last trio of Players' Championship events. Andrew Gilding's been fantastic this year. It's why he made his first final in 7 years. It's why he has a chance to make the World Match Play for the first time in 7 years. But I think 2 of those 3 will drop out. I'm saying Scott Williams will get in. I'm saying Roby John will get in. But it's a few players like Keen Barry, like Josh Rock, like even Mervyn King if he brings his game. Richie Edhouse as a long shot who's really quietly, last year I said he was quietly having a very good year. He still is quietly a very good player. Never gets the respect he deserves, but he's right there in the race. There's players who can do it, but I think only 2 of them will. And I think Gilding will hold on to his spot. So I'm saying Adrian Lewis and Ross Smith are dropping out.
Well, if Dan Dawson's listening, he'll be delighted with that prediction that Andrew Gilding will hopefully cling on to that spot for the World Match Play. Well, let's get to our final guest on this week's show. We're going to switch gears to the World Seniors. Here's our chat with the co-promoter of the World Seniors Darts Tour. Here's our chat with Jason Francis. I'm pleased to say I'm joined by the co-promoter of the World Seniors Darts Tour, Jason Francis. Thanks for the time again, Jason. How are you doing?
Lovely to hear from you.
Well, there's plenty to get to, but we'll first circle back to when we last had you on the show, October of last year, so around 4 months before the first World Seniors Darts Championship was held. What were those, I guess, last few months and weeks of build-up like heading to the Circus Tavern and that first event?
Yeah, it's been a real steep learning curve for me. I think I'd like to think I probably know a bit more now about darts than I did at the start, but it's been exciting. It's been challenging at times, but there's no doubt that the response from people has shown that the product was sort of probably well overdue and has been very well received.
And of course, before then, we did see a qualifier for the last few spots at the Circus Tavern. That took place in November. I think there was over 100 players that entered those qualifiers. Were you pleased with that initial turnout for that first qualifier? Yeah, definitely was. And very pleased with the standard as well. I think that was always the big unknown with the Seniors Tour. And I think that right from day one of the qualifiers, it was pretty clear that this was going to be seriously competitive and the averages were going to be pretty tasty as well. And then February rolls round, the World Seniors Championship is finally here. As the co-promoter, with it being 10 months in the making since that first announcement. What was it like for you seeing the idea finally come to fruition that weekend?
Yeah, I mean, it was wonderful. And I think, there's moments that you kind of... It took so long to get on, and then it passed in a blur. But there was so many memorable moments, and a few sort of stay with me. Obviously, for Robert Thornton, it was an unbelievable moment. He wrote his name into darting history. But seeing Phil back playing, seeing the walk-on ovation John Lowe got, I'll never forget that. And yeah, it's as I say, it's been incredible. Really, I don't think we could have asked for a better sort of first year of events, coming from where we'd come from.
As you mentioned, there were a lot of special moments that weekend. The event, it did get free-to-air coverage via the BBC iPlayer, and after a few teething problems with the production on the first night, it was well received by darts fans, provided some great moments. What were your main takeaways as a promoter from that first event, putting it on?
Well, I think the first night, you can't hide behind the fact that we had some sound issues, and really we were a victim of our own success. We could not, obviously, we couldn't test the sound levels of the audience, and we chose to put Ray and Bobby right in the crowd. That was the idea. So, we couldn't do a test event and bring 1,000 people in there, 3 or 4 beers deep singing. So it was a tough first night. No doubt about it, and there's no point making excuses about it. We had to take that one on the chin, work overnight, and then kind of improve. And I think generally people would say now we've come a very long way in the 3 events we've done.
Definitely, and we've seen a lot of legends back on the hockey, none bigger than Phil Taylor, and after his probably earlier than expected exit at the Circus Tavern, we've seen him now make 2 finals in the last 2 events. Did you expect to see that reaction from Phil following that first event, him to challenge more for the titles?
Oh, yeah, no, definitely. I mean, he arrived at Lakeside, obviously a very different, I don't want to say animal, but, he'd obviously put some work in. And then you saw again this weekend, he'd upped his game again. And, it's very hard I see this across my other sport as well. These players will never be as good as they were. But for someone, especially Phil Taylor, look at the bar he set. So, whereas some people may only think, well, I've only got a shorter jump to get back to something like I was. For Phil, he changed the game of darts. He ripped up the rule book. So, there's always been a massive amount of expectation on him. And he's someone who really didn't throw a dart right through COVID. So, he probably had a longer journey than anyone else anyway. But, you can see the desires back. You can see how much he hates losing. And that's brilliant. As a promoter, it's brilliant to see that.
And you touched on it as well with the crowd at the Circus Tavern. It looked packed out for the World Championship, so I guess it was a no-brainer to book the same venue again for next year.
Yeah, we want to start building legacy. We want to build, our home of the World Championships will be the Circus Tavern. And hopefully, we're now into year 2 of a very long stay there. We love the venue. It's steeped in history. And it's a cauldron. I mean, and I think some players will be inspired by that. Some of them get intimidated by it. But that's all part of dealing with the tournament darts.
And since then, we've had the World Masters at Lakeside just this past weekend, the World Match Play and Hull, both events with wall-to-wall coverage on BT Sport. How pleasing has it been to have BT get behind all of these events?
Oh, fantastic. I mean, we've been incredibly lucky with our broadcast partners and our tour sponsors. Because, without them, one has to lead the other. You're not going to attract sponsorship without TV coverage. And, you need the TV coverage to get the sponsors. So it's, we've been incredibly lucky that everyone who started with us at the Lakeside, at the Tavern, in terms of sponsorship, has stayed with us. And everyone, our broadcast partners. And our events were remember, they were sort of some challenging weekends for other broadcasts. In May, we were up against the Champions League final, of which, Liverpool are probably one of the most followed teams in the world, playing Real Madrid, probably one of the most followed teams in the world as well. So we were up against that. This weekend, we were up against Wimbledon and the British Grand Prix. The fact that we've rated so well when those other things are on has shown that we are developing a real loyal audience.
Good to hear. And we mentioned off air, we asked our listeners to send in their questions. They've got a few to ask you. I know some asked about any future events being covered again by a free-to-air broadcaster. Is there anything in the pipeline for next year? We're going to see the World Championship shown again on the BBC or somewhere else?
Well, I think we're only in July, so in some ways now we've done the 3 events. We have activity still going on with the qualifiers, and those conversations now have to take place with a wide variety of broadcasters. Before we were going into broadcasters selling them an idea of what we thought it could be. Now we actually have data of what it's done, and we also have footage that we can show. So we're in a much stronger position. I mean, the thing with television is incredibly competitive. There are plenty of people out there who want their products on TV. So, it's very hard. But as I say, we've been delighted that we've managed to broadcast every event live so far. Some on free-to-air channels and some on sort of subscription-based channels. We were in Germany as well this weekend with Sport 1, who've covered every event. We've also provided our own sort of pay-per-view streaming link, and I use that very lightly because literally you could see the whole weekend around the world for £10. We were charging £2 a session. So when I say pay-per-view, that was really us just trying to cover our costs, but also make it accessible as possible. So, I think we've done it so that anyone in the world would be able to enjoy senior starts.
Just touching on that, you mentioned that the pay-per-view that's on offer to anyone, I guess. Have you noticed any random places you maybe didn't think would want to watch the senior starts that have picked it up?
Yeah. I mean, you do. I mean, there's been so many countries that have, have picked it up, and I think it shows that darts is a global sport. And I'm very aware at the moment, and we probably mentioned this before. If we want to become a world tour, we have to tour the world. So, as we stand at the moment, our 3 majors are sat within the UK, but ultimately, it has to be our goal to kind of place events outside the UK as well and take these senior players all around the world.
Definitely. Well, let's get to some of our listener questions. The first one comes from Warren Allsworth, who says, congrats on a great first year. How will the additional spots for the Senior World Championship be filled, and will the event run with an additional session and day? And this is, of course, the news that come over the weekend that it's been extended from 24 to 32 players next year.
Yeah, so I mean, very simply, scheduling wise, we will add the Thursday afternoon session, which will allow more players to get an opportunity to play in the World Championship. We've already announced that we're going to, as well as rewarding the Order of Merit leader, which has proved to be really popular. And I think the drama of the weekends has not just been about the qualifier. It's about the guys working out their ranking points, who needs to beat who. And it's added a nice bit of drama. But then alongside that, we will also grant a place for the person who's top of the money list, not already invited. So the money list is an interesting one because the money list is open to everyone, be it the invited players or the qualifiers. It means that there are, of course, added benefits for players who qualify for final events as well to earn money for the money list. So, we've definitely committed more opportunities. Whether we will make more places available or less, it's still very early days. But what we're saying is, last year we had sort of 2 players in it, and this year we're saying 4. So, we think we're making progress.
Excellent. Well, the next question comes from Jacko Says Relax, and he says, will you guys be heading back to Lakeside next year?
Yeah, well, that's an interesting one. I mean, Lakeside was a challenging event. I think the important thing is always to be incredibly honest. It was challenging for us with ticket sales. However, it's probably the venue we do on the tour which is most suited to actually hosting a broadcast darts event. So what I mean by that is, as a venue with its layout, it has the least challenges for sort of TV production, for even things like car parking on site. So, Lakeside as a venue is truly, truly wonderful, and obviously steeped in history. But it has challenges. It's a venue that's not open for much of the year, so people don't get used to going. It doesn't really have its own box office, so we're reliant on selling all the tickets. We don't have access to the database of everyone who's visited darts there across the years, and any promoter will tell you having that sort of data is absolutely vital. So, we very much would like to continue the journey with Lakeside and rebuild the audiences again. But there are a number of factors involved in those discussions. So no news on that at the moment, but hand on heart, we'd love to continue working with the Lakeside, but I hope everyone understands it has to make commercial sense.
Definitely. Well, the next one, this is based on another announcement from the weekend that there's going to be a fourth televised event from the World Seniors next year. Oki Balboa asking what is going to be that fourth TV event next year.
We've not gone into too much detail on that yet, and it's not because we're trying to, keep everyone guessing. It's just that, verbal agreements have been made, but until contracts are signed, we can't actually announce that. But what we can say is that it will carry the golden ticket, and that's going to be somewhere slightly different. Where on that Friday before the weekend, the whole tour will have the chance to descend on the venue, get their darts out, knowing that one of them will be on TV the next day in a ranking event. So, as I say, we will call it the golden ticket. So that's exciting. Again, when we can say more, we absolutely will, because we're really excited about it. But it'll offer something a little bit different.
Definitely keep an eye out for that. The next one comes from Ben Nicholson. He says, fantastic success on the launch of the Seniors Tour. Would you consider bringing an event to Blackpool for us Northerners? Plus, Blackpool in general is a great location with plenty of hotels for ticket holders and players alike, and great venues for the event, such as the Winter Gardens.
He's already incredibly lucky in that I think shortly coming up, the world of darts moves to Blackpool, doesn't it, for their match play? So I think Blackpool is one of, I would say, dozens of seaside type resorts, which would be fantastic for a seniors darts event. As I say, I think Blackpool at the moment is home to one of the biggest darts events of the year. So he probably gets the opportunity to go and watch some darts. As I say, the venue, the Winter Gardens, is a tremendous venue. As is there are literally dozens and dozens of venues all around the country which could host darts, and I'm sure we'd get similar support.
The next one comes from Harry Briggs. I'm interested to get your views on this. Were you disappointed not to have the World Seniors Champion gain entry into the Grand Slam of darts, considering in the snooker the Seniors Champ gets into the Champion of Champions?
I wouldn't say I'm disappointed, because I think you're comparing two things that can't really be compared. In snooker, my World Senior Snooker has an affiliation with the World Snooker Tour, in that we both share partners being the governing body of the sport. So there's a natural kind of partnership there already, and we are in effect in the World Senior Snooker, they are rewarding people generally who are already members of their tour. In darts, it's slightly different. We don't have an official affiliation to the PDC. How wonderful would it be if that somewhere down the line our champions do get rewarded? Because I think our champions would add commercial value to their events. But as I say, disappointment's not the right word, because there is no expectation. We are separate sort of bodies doing our own thing at the moment, and as I say, they pretty much sell out every venue they go to, don't they? So I doubt having a seniors champion invited is on their cards at the moment. I mean, you'd have to correct me in the wrong. Did the WDF champion get invited?
No, that's the same as well. No WDF champion.
Right, so it's not like one particular darting body's being treated any different. So I think we'd love to work with the PDC down the line on opportunities like that for our champions, but they don't owe us anything, and they certainly do a very, very good job at running their own events.
We'll keep an eye out in the future. And the last of our listener questions comes from Languster, who says, is there any non-PDC player who he'd like to see join the seniors who hasn't as yet, and are there any plans for a pairs tournament?
Non-PDC player? You see, now you're testing my darting knowledge, because I'm probably not the right promoter to be asking about that. I mean, there must be players out there who wouldn't it be great if they were picking up their darts and playing competitively again. Also, it's not for everyone. You know, a lot of these guys who might say it'll be great to see XYZ play again, they probably don't have the game anymore, or are willing to put in the practice to do it. And this is the problem. You also have to protect legacy as well. And I think that a few players have certainly found it a lot tougher than they thought it was going to be. So, you know, the beauty of this tour is that the only barrier is age. So no matter, you know, anyone can enter one of our qualifiers and get a place. And that, you know, we've had decorated champions play in the qualifiers. And we've also had players who probably were county, Super League, club players. So the opportunities out there for everyone for that. Right, what was the second part? Sorry, I've rattled on.
Do you have
There was two parts to the question, wasn't it?
Do you have any plans for a pairs tournament?
Oh, a pairs tournament. Honestly, no. But I mean, as I say, it's not. I like the idea of in snooker many years ago. I did the Legends Cup, which was a Ryder Cup format. We would do England, rest of the world, England, Ireland, things like that, and that was tremendously successful. So who's to say down the line that sort of event excites me? If you had like 3 or 4 in a team and they were playing doubles and singles as a team. As I say, I know, I think Australia won a pairs type of event recently where they played doubles in some rounds and then singles, things like that. So it's obviously something that's worked for the PDC. So who knows? I mean, the one thing we'll never do is stop listening and learning, and if we can, we'll do it.
And lastly, before we let you go, just a look ahead really. We've just had the third and the final TV event from the seniors this year, this past weekend in Hull, but that's not it for the seniors tour this year. What else is coming up before we close the book on 2022?
Yeah, so we have an Open Series event at the end of the month. I know, and there's one more Open Series event before we go into the big one, the qualifiers in November again, which will be for the Tavern 2023. So, next season's calendar is beginning to take shape. The idea, if we can, is that there will be activity every month in 2023, be that a major TV event or a qualifier or an Open Series event. The Open Series events are really important for ranking points and money lists, but also, we've created a Super Saturday in all of them. So now, you win that event on the Saturday. It's a minimum £1,000 for the winner. So, we've upped that as well. So, but we also understand that, players have so much to play in now. Darts is in a great place with so many tours and activity going on. And we've got to make sure that if you're over 50 and you're not on that PDC tour, that we want you to choose the World Seniors Tour and commit to that. So to do that, we have to make sure we have enough activity going on to keep people interested and enough prize money to make it worthwhile for them travelling to come.
Well, Jason, it's always a pleasure to get you on the show. We appreciate your time. Congratulations on the first year of the World Seniors, all the events that we've had, and we wish you all the best for the rest of the year and what's to come in 2023 as well.
Thanks very much. Thanks for your support.
Thanks again to Jason for joining us, and we'll finish up the show with a look back at the other darts that took place at the weekend on TV. That was the World Seniors match play, and Robert Thornton making it 2 out of 3 on the Seniors Tour this year, beating Phil Taylor in extra legs in Sunday night's final. But the big question is, will he be defending those titles next year, or do you think we'll see Robert Thornton with a tour card in 2023?
I'm probably the worst person to ask this, because when we went through our Q School predictions at the beginning of the year, Robert Thornton was one of the ones that I threw out. And I had some good tips. I definitely had some good tips. I had Pikachu to win his tour card as my long shot, and he did at the European one. But I also had some bad tips, one of those being Robert Thornton. So I've already been wrong once regarding whether Thornton would win back his card. And, when he dropped off the tour, I mean, it was fair. He was not playing as one of the top 64 players at the time, but he certainly was playing at a level that showed that he was still capable. And obviously the hunger is still there. That's why he continues to give it a shot. That's why he goes and plays in pretty much anything that he can play, whether it's the senior tour, whether it was the online darts league. Obviously, as well, the challenge tour keeps going to Q School. He's still playing at a standard when he's at least forced to play at that standard. That is good enough, which means he should be live at Q School, assuming he wants to go and give it a chance. But will he win a tour card? It is so difficult to predict. That's why, even though I thought he was not a foregone conclusion, but I was willing to tip him, he didn't. That's why the player that we both agreed was a foregone conclusion, Roby John Rodriguez, barely snuck in and had to get lucky to do so. And, well, we've seen how he's kicked on this year. Robert Thornton didn't win the tour card, but he has kicked on this year. And yes, okay, the averages that he's played in those tournaments aren't going to threaten a tour card at Q School and certainly aren't going to threaten wins on the Pro Tour. But he hasn't had to for the most part. He's done what he needs to win the match. And that's why he won the World Senior Championship. That's why he won the World Senior Match Play, because he is better than not necessarily everyone on the senior tour, but better than most. And those that he's not, he's on the same level as, and he's able to be more match fit and know how to lift his game and find his way over the line. If he's back playing on the senior tour next year, he has every chance to defend it. And as we'll talk about, maybe even win the one that he hasn't won and win the new one that just got announced. Could he get the complete sweep? I'm not going to tip him to. So, yeah, he probably will then, because whatever I tip him to, he does the opposite. But I'm not going to tip him to, but he absolutely can. But I also think he can win a tour card. He still has that drive and that desire to play at the highest level, and he has the game in the locker to boot. So I don't know. I think he can defend those titles, but I also think he can win a tour card. It'll make January all the more interesting.
Yeah, definitely will. And that was something that I was going to bring up as well, was the desire that we've seen from Robert Thornton. And when we spoke to him just after he won the World Seniors Championship, we both spoke to him, and he said, the goal is still to get that tour card and get back on the PDC circuit. But with this new avenue that we've got in darts this year and for years to come, the World Seniors, it is giving him opportunities to play, more opportunities to play. And I think that the key thing really is opportunities to play on a stage, on TV, and with a good bit of prize money to play for as well. 10 grand he got for winning that title on Sunday, 30 grand he got for winning the World Seniors Championship earlier on in the year. So a good bit of money there to pick up, isn't there? And okay, yeah, as he said to us, as he said in other interviews, even at the weekend as well, he said he wants to get that tour card back. And if he does, that will mean that he won't be able to play in the World Seniors Championship next year or play in any of the other World Seniors events on TV. Now, that is, of course, we could see the PDC turn around and say, you know what, you won your World Seniors title last year, we'll let you go and defend it like they did with the WDF and letting the players that got their tour cards play in it. But you'd probably say that's more unlikely on this situation. But I think for Robert Thornton, we have seen in these events that he has still got the game to compete with the big boys in the seniors. But you know, he can mix it with any other player as well. And I wanted to pick out a run that we saw, particularly in the semi-final against Martin Adams, and probably one of the best games we've seen in the seniors events this year. We saw from 3-2 down, Martin Adams win, was it 5 legs in a row, 15-11, 21, we won't mention that one, 12-12. That's a pretty good run, and 7-3 up against Robert Thornton in a race to 9. What does Robert Thornton do? He goes 16, 15, 14, 13, 17, 13 to win it 9-7, and then to beat Phil Taylor in the final. And of course, he survived match darts in that final, won it 12-10, but he got over the line. And as I said on Twitter, there's not many better endings to a darts tournament than hearing 500 Miles by the Proclaimers being played in the venue. And that's not because I'm a big Robert Thornton fan, although he is an all-time great, but I'm a bigger Proclaimers fan, so I always enjoy listening to that. But as far as Q School, as you say, it can be very difficult to predict these things, and he'll probably go into next year's Q School. We expect him to go into it, but probably with a lot less pressure on him, because 2021, 2022, he hasn't really come close to getting that tour card, but he has got the seniors, I wouldn't say to fall back on, but it is a live option for him, isn't it, going forward? And it is going to give him opportunities to still play on TV and pick up some good bits of prize money. So as much as he'd love to get that tour card back, get it at Q School and a bit like you'd say Richie Burnett, he's calling this his last dance with his tour card that he got at Q School. I think we'd probably like to see him get that tour card back once and have that last run on the PDC. But if he doesn't, he's got the seniors, and we'll see plenty more of him next year.
And lastly, that's the TV events for this year done in the first year of the seniors. 4 TV events on the calendar for next year, as well as the Senior World Championships expanding to 32 players from the 24 it was this year. What have you made of the seniors' first year? And if you were in charge, what would you change?
I think for the most part, it's just been great to see the Legends darts, seniors darts back on TV, because as we've said on the show, when they first announced the seniors was coming, that was back in April 2021, so it was a long time waiting for then that first event in February, best part of a year build up to that. But I think just seeing the Legends events back on TV after a while, 2008 was the last time we had it with the League of Legends, that it has been long overdue. And I think, yeah, there are some things that I would personally like to change, and for me, I think it's probably the planning of these events, where they sit in the calendar, because I think the second and third events maybe were a little bit too close. And I think we've seen over time that the first event, the World Championship, there was a lot of buzz around that event and that weekend. And okay, as Jason Francis pointed out in our chat, the second and third events, they were up against big sporting events. The second one, we had the Champions League final that weekend. The third one just gone, we've had Wimbledon going on, we've had the British Grand Prix, the Formula One, so they've been up against it in those weekends. So for me, I'd probably like to see it spread out a little bit more across the year. As we touched on, there's going to be 4 TV events next year, so maybe one every 2 or 3 months. And as Jason said, his plan is to have at least one event a month for the seniors, whether that's a TV event, an open or a qualifier, to keep the seniors tour a little bit more active next year. And I think that will be a good thing going forward. But for me, if I was to be in charge, I think one of the main things I would do, maybe look to put the World Championship on towards the end of the year. And the reason I say that is because the last question, we could have Robert Thornton, the defending champion, we could have him, maybe 3, 4, 5, who knows how many players go to Q School, get their tour cards, and if they were in the field for the World Seniors, they'd be out of it. And that would be a shame to see them miss it out, and then have to find other players to come in and take their place. So you could see a few big names miss out. So for me, I'd probably look to put the World Championship on as there maybe event towards the end of the year. Put it on maybe October, November, December time, somewhere around that. And by that point, you will know all the players that will be eligible to play. You won't have to worry about what happened to Q School a few weeks earlier. So that'd probably be my main change I'd like to make. And I guess really one of the highlights, I've got to give a shout out to Bobby George, because he's probably the most honest pundit we've ever had in darts, and we don't see him very often now on TV. The World Seniors, that was his return, and it is always a pleasure to see him on TV, hear his opinion, because there's no other pundit in the game like Bobby George. So good to see him back involved, and it has been good to see a lot of these legends play as well. John Lowe, that was the last time we're going to see him play on TV. He said he's only playing the first year of the events, then he's going to be an ambassador for the World Seniors going forward. So to get to see those players play again, there may be some others that we don't see play again, but just to see him one more time has been good to see.
Well, I'll play a little devil's advocate and argue something different regarding the timing of the World Championships. And I think you make a good point, but I'll make the counterpoint that we're going to see more quote-unquote legends falling off the tour each year than we're going to see those winning back their tour cards at Q School. It's granted, some years will be different, but more often than not, we're going to see more players over 50 who fall off the tour than those who are over 50 that are able to get back on it. And that, I think, lends itself towards the event making more sense somewhere at the beginning or even in the middle of the year, even if it means a couple players who you might have thought you would get won't end up in the field. You might end up with Robert Thornton going to Q School and winning back its card and therefore not being able to compete. While if it was in November or December, he would have been able to. But I think it's worth it because you open up some players who are fresh, who are going to bring some added quality to the event, who will be able to go in and try to win some of those spots in the field and will be legitimate contenders for it. Because, well, Robert Thornton, okay, he didn't have a tour card last year, but he's recently played on the tour, and he was playing a lot on the tour last year, even without a tour card. And that showed. His recent experience made him one of those players who at the back end of the tournament was able to, as the matches got longer, as the event dragged on, was able to lift his game and win it. I think having those players in the field is a good thing because it gives that recent marketability and that little added quality that might not be there if it's all legends. Granted, the main marketability is the legends. It is Phil Taylor. It is John Lowe. It is those players from yesteryear. And making sure that they're happy and willing to compete, at least some of them, is going to be key to driving attendance and driving viewership going forward. And I think they did a phenomenal job of that. That's why they were able to get these 3 events with decent prize pools, and seemingly will be able to come back next year, not just with the same 3, but to grow it and add a 4th. That is a tremendous job, and one that I think outperformed my expectations. I thought the World Championship maybe would just be that one carrot for each year as something to bring them all together and maybe get some televised interest, but I didn't think there'd be enough to have more than one televised event. It seems like I was wrong. We'll see how those 4 events go next year and whether it continues from there. But if they really think they're able to grow this, then they're outperforming what I thought they'd be able to do. That said, what would I change? Well, I would give me a refund for the for this past weekend's event. I didn't buy the entire package. I just bought the final session because I was busy. I was traveling. But I wanted to watch the final session. And even though my Wi-Fi was even but by the 247 Sports own email exchange with them 9 times, or almost 9 times the speed that was needed for it to work, it wasn't working. I could not get it to load, and they would not give me a refund, even though I asked for one less than 15 minutes after purchasing it because it wasn't working. If they really want to nickel and dime me over £5, well, then I have no use for the senior tour, and I will leave it at that. Because I'm not going to support something if they really cared that much about £5, especially after I had bought the World Championship, the full thing, for £30, and had bought the previous event as well. So I'm done watching it, even if I was only watching it a little bit, because I'm not paying £5 on a gamble that it's going to work. Anything else for this week?
Well, there is only one way that the World Seniors can make it up to you, of course, and that is to put Mark Walsh in all the events next year. Don't let him play in any of the qualifiers. Put him straight in, and that would make up for it. I think you'd probably buy another one, wouldn't you?
I would consider it. Maybe if they gave me a refund first. I can always follow the scores online because I don't need to watch to know Mark Walsh is going to win it. I know in my heart he's going to win it, and if me not watching to prove a point will help him win, then I'm all in favor of that.
There was anything else for this week, and of course it is to, as we always say, to say thank you to our guests for joining us, to Mark, to Jason for taking the time. Big thanks to our sponsor Dartwolf for their continued support. Go to dartwolf.tv, give Dartwolf a follow on Twitter at Dartwolf180. We should say a shout out to the people that are continuing to support us as well. We had Preston Noonan say, love your podcast, listened to them all since I found you 5 months or so ago. Great job. So thanks very much for that. And FDI, of course, our good friend, he said, more than deserved, lads. Absolutely love to listen to you whenever I'm in the car. So thanks very much to you two guys for your support. Thanks to everyone for listening. And, of course, we'll be back next week. And when we are talking next week, we will know the 32-player field for the World Match Play. We'll probably know the draw as well. And we'll be looking ahead to the World Match Play of our preview show and try and get on some of the players that are going to be playing at, for me, it's the best venue in the PDC, the Winter Garden. So until then, enjoy the darts.
Nothing says summer like the Winter Gardens. I can't believe it's almost time. But yes, big weekend, as Alex said, coming up as we finalize the field for the World Match Play. You'll have to hang tight a couple more days, but then you'll let loose and enjoy the darts. And then I can't wait because I think the World Match Play, other than the World Championships, it's my favorite event. And we'll have to get a bumper show together as we look forward to that. Until then, hang tight and enjoy the darts.